and leave no one behind. If quitting is the crime, let's take their hands and
coming now!
Oh, where am I?
You washed up.
Sorry?
Welcome to the island of discarded women, my friend.
I used to be somebody. Are you that woman on the radio?
Your island job is peladora de papas.
Sorry, what?
Potato peeler, 87% match for your skills.
Okay, that's not... Anyway, what is the second best match then?
Host of the Island Podcast.
Are you kidding me? No, see, that's me. That's perfect for me. That's the... Oh, Dae. I'm over here. I'm here. Wow, those waves.
I know.
Like, whoa.
Hey, so do you know what's going
What?
on at the Anger Hut?
The Anger Hut.
Have you seen the long lines?
Yeah. The lines at the Anger Hut are because they have a new room there. It's called the Rage Room.
The Rage
Yeah,
Room.
the Rage Room. It's a room
okay.
where you rage, about whatever's bothering you, and then you smash stuff while you're doing it.
Wait, you what?
Yeah. So you wear protective gloves and,
Okay.
and goggles and a face shield, and you go into this padded room, and you scream and yell, and you rage about whatever you want to rage about,
Okay.
while smashing things with a baseball bat, a crowbar, or a sledgehammer.
Okay, wait, no, seriously? Like
yeah.
smashing
Right.
what kind of things?
Well, they have little things like vases and plates, and then they have big
Okay.
things like TVs and computers. And then you just pick up the sledgehammer or the bat or whatever, and then you just smash the hell out of the thing, and it's very freeing.
Okay. Oh, okay, well, hey,
Yeah.
I get that
Yeah.
releasing pent-up rage
Yeah.
would be very freeing,
Yeah.
but, smashing stuff sounds crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy, but in a very good way.
Right? And I mean, I guess based on the long lines, the room is clearly a hit.
Oh, that's really good there,
They
Jay.
laugh.
I saw what you did there, Jay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, well, have you tried it, Sue? The rage room?
Yeah, I tried it once. Yeah.
Oh. What were you raging about? Or sorry, is that private?
No. I'll tell you.
Okay.
Okay, here's the thing. Did you know that women can't build skyscrapers?
Okay, what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right before the election, a reporter was talking to a woman about who she might be voting for.
Okay.
And she said she would not be voting for Kamala Harris because, quote, women can't build skyscrapers.
Wait, what?
So the reporter said, okay, I'm sorry, are you saying that women, like, they can't physically construct the buildings, or are you
Right,
talking
right.
about designing the buildings? Because there have been many women who have designed skyscrapers.
Okay.
And the voter was sort of stumped by this whole thing and had no answer.
Okay.
So then I started thinking, okay, is this a thing? Is this like a thing that people were saying? Like as
yeah.
proof that Kamala wasn't capable of being president because, well, women can't build skyscrapers, so of course they can't be president. I mean, was it like a thing?
Right. So is it a
Well,
thing?
then, okay, so then I Googled it.
Wait. Why are you Googling, Sue? Where's Mary?
Oh, Mary is on some yearly retreat with all the virtual assistants in the world. I don't know.
Okay.
That's where she
Wow.
is.
Well-
So we got to Google right now, girlfriend. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, well, I'm just,
Yeah.
that's retro.
It's very
Okay.
retro,
Anyway,
but that's
so
what
you
we gotta do.
Googled skyscrapers
Yeah.
and women.
Yes.
Okay.
And it is a thing.
What?
Yes, it's a thing people say to justify why women aren't strong enough to do, like big, huge jobs without men. Well, women can't build skyscrapers.
But you said that lots of skyscrapers have been designed by women.
Yes.
So,
And some of them are the tallest buildings in the world. And one of those skyscrapers, whose construction was overseen by a woman,
okay.
was the first Trump Tower in New York City.
A woman was in charge of building Trump Tower?
Yes, ma'am.
What?
In 1980, Barbara Rez, at 31 years old, was hired as vice president in charge of construction.
Whoa.
She was the first woman to oversee a major New York City construction site.
Okay.
Now, she has since released a memoir in 2020 denouncing Trump and all he stands for, but the fact that he gave this huge job to a woman back in 1980 when women weren't being hired for those kind of jobs, you got to give credit where credit is due. I mean,
Yeah,
right?
I guess. That
Okay.
one time. Okay.
And now, listen to this. Speaking of women, construction managers.
Okay.
Did you know that the building of the Brooklyn Bridge was overseen by a woman?
Really? Oh, okay.
Yes.
What year was this?
Yes, this was 1870.
1870?
1870. Emily Warren Roebling oversaw the bridge construction for 14 years
Okay.
as the acting chief engineer.
All right, okay. And then what's acting chief? What does that mean?
Okay, so originally her father-in-law was in charge.
Okay.
And then he died in an accident before the construction began.
Right.
Okay, so then his son, her husband, became the chief engineer.
Okay.
But then he became really sick and bedridden with Cason disease
Okay.
from working underwater at the bridge site and just coming up too fast. It's like the bends or like that decompression thing.
All right, okay,
So
okay.
Emily took over as the chief engineering person.
Oh.
Studying the bridge construction, communicating daily between her bedridden husband and the on-site personnel. She also fended off unsavory competitors, and she got that darn Brooklyn Bridge built.
Wow.
And it opened in 1883, the longest suspension bridge in the world at the time. It was even called the eighth wonder of the world. And Emily was the first person to ride across the bridge in a carriage, supposedly carrying a rooster.
Why?
No one knows.
Okay.
Now, she did have to fight to keep her husband's name associated with the bridge. I mean, forget putting her own name. I mean,
Yeah,
it's 1883.
Right.
But eventually, they did put a plaque on the bridge commemorating her amazing achievement.
That's so cool. You know, I didn't know any of this,
Yeah,
Sue.
I didn't either. So all of these horrible messages that young women are getting right now, right? Mm-hmm. Trumpeted, no pun intended, by those who are soon to be in charge, that women will never reach top jobs because they're much more valued at home. And that the men with multiple sexual assault charges will instead be rewarded with those top jobs because we don't care about those sexual assault charges anymore.
No, that was so yesterday.
That's so yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that Proud Boy guy spouting your body, my choice on election night. And now all these junior high and high school boys are running around the halls with T-shirts with the phrase on it and yelling it at girls.
You know, this bro culture manosphere is just unbelievably toxic and cruel.
Yes, and it is on overdrive right now because way too many feel that the election results gave them permission to freely degrade women.
Yeah, like it's cool now.
Oh, yeah, it's so cool now. Right.
So,
What?
do we do about it?
Well, we have to do this. We have to celebrate the gains, right?
Okay.
We have to celebrate the wins that women have made.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been too slow, not enough, but they're real. They're there. And we have to make sure the young women hear about them, all women. There are more women CEOs, more women pastors, more women in military positions, more women on construction jobs, both as crew and as managers.
Okay.
So we have to blast these messages out there.
Yeah.
You are amazing. You are capable.
Yeah, you can build skyscrapers.
You can build bridges.
You can defy gravity.
Yes, and be popular too.
Okay, listen. You are stronger than they think you
Yes.
are, and that scares them.
Yes. Exactly. But I get it. At some point, celebrating the gains may not be enough to drown out the hate.
Right, and there's so much of that right now.
Right. So at that point, this is what we do. We say, okay, when all of this toxicity starts to just overwhelm you, you collect all those venomous negative messages.
Right.
And you type all those ugly, poisonous words on a computer screen. And then you walk into a padded room.
With safety gloves, goggles, and a sledgehammer.
You're right. And you smash the shit out of them. And the next time someone says to you, your body, my choice, you turn to them and you say, oh, I wouldn't go there if I were you. I've got a computer screen in a padded room with your name on it.
That little girl, she's a hurricane. Stick around, well, you might as well dig your own grave. I've been living in this town for some time. I got pictures in my mind Oh, I pray to God I could erase. She comes in talking so sweet. Before you know it, she'll knock you off your feet. But young man, take a look up at the sky. So dark it ain't even night. Oh, you better pray your locked door keeps. Ooh. Might I suggest while you've got time, maybe you take a little ride out to the hill past the church. See the graveyard's fresh dirt, that hole looking just about your size. See how it just got so still. What's that thing coming over the hill? If you'd have only took heed, boy, you wouldn't be on your knees begging your God to intervene. Ooh. That little girl, she's a hurricane. Everybody's been told to evacuate. Is that right? You think you'll be the first to somehow miss the worst? Well, you just sealed your own fate.
Keri Noble. Keri Noble. Woo! Woo! Oh my God. So, Keri. Wow, I just love that song. It's just got just that grit and that meatiness and that powerful. So, you said you wanted to write something that was gritty and soulful and strong. So tell me about this song a little bit.
Well, I think for whatever reason at that moment, I felt like we had spent a lot of time thinking about bad boys, guys that aren't good for us, and glamorizing that. And I wanted to write a song about a really powerful, unapologetic woman who just kind of comes in and, messes
the
shit
hell
up.
out of stuff. Yeah, exactly. Good for you. Good for you. I love it. Love it. Okay, now you are a preacher's kid, as am I. As is Sarah Stoesz, everybody. So it's PK night again. We've had PK nights before. Well, and actually, Dae is a shaman's kid, so that's a SK. And Melissa's a theater kid, so that's a TK. Okay, anyway. So you tell a story. Your dad was a Southern Baptist minister in Detroit. You were growing up in Detroit.
Yeah.
I watched a video at this gig you did, and you tell a story about the very, very first time that you were going to play your own composition by yourself at a church service, at a Sunday church service.
Yeah.
And you're like, what, 18, 19 years old? Mm-hmm. Okay. And at the time, you had this crush on this guy.
I was crazy about him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this really interesting tidbit, she said, he looked like Jesus.
Well, he had long hair. It was the 90s. He looked like he just came from a Pearl Jam concert. But it was very Jesus-like in retrospect. Yeah.
I
was still working some things out.
I get it. Okay, and so the day you're going to, very, very, very first time, you're going to play your own song during church, he shows up.
Yes.
Totally unexpectedly.
I did not invite him. And he was a musician too, so I really kind of at that time was just beginning to dip my toe into the water of creation, singer-songwriter, creating my own music. And he felt like somebody who always knew who he was and what he was going to do, and I got thrown. Yeah.
So you're up there and you're too nervous to do it.
I have, at this point in my life, like 11 years of classical training out the window. I looked at my hands, I looked at the black and white keys, and I had no idea. I mean, and I'm not exaggerating, no idea where to put anything. Just, it was a mess.
Yeah. So then your dad, and this is during the service, so then your dad does what?
He comes back onto the stage and he says, "Congregation, let's pray for her." And he puts his hand on my shoulder and proceeds to, and the whole time I'm thinking, well, if God can't help me at this point, I don't know what's going to happen.
And I don't know at that point if that's actually that helpful, but
It was not helpful.
you know, it just brings more focus to the problem.
Yeah.
So anyway, the congregation prays for you and you try again.
And it doesn't go well.
Yeah.
And I can't get through even the intro to the song. And I realize at this point that it's time to be done. So I just say, "I'm sorry, I can't do this." And I stood up and I literally left the church and went home.
Yeah.
Like I literally left.
I know. Like during the church service, it's like, "I'm sorry, I'm out here." I thought when she told the story that she just like walked like out of the church.
I was mortified.
No, she went home.
Yeah. And then my mom invited the guy to Sunday lunch.
What?
So I couldn't escape. He was still there.
Right. Okay, so the cool part about the story is your mom makes you try again the next Sunday.
Yeah, she was convinced that if I didn't immediately get back on the horse and sing the next week, that I would probably never do it again. And I think she was right.
And you did, and it went well.
I did. It went well.
And you're here today.
Yeah, I don't think I would have. Honestly, I don't think I would have had I not gone back that next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I love that. I love that. God bless your mother.
Yes.
Really, God bless your mother. You've toured all over the world. You've performed for troops in Iraq. You've opened for Cyndi Lauper. Kelly Clarkson has recorded this beautiful song of yours. You were on the radio here in town for about 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
K-Fan, Cities 97.
Right.
They had played some of your music. You'd come on to do like interviews. And then that sort of turned into a relationship where you were on more often. And then you were a co-host. And then you had your own show.
Mm-hmm.
And you're waking up at 3:30 in the morning because that's what you do when you're on the early show.
It's true.
How was that?
Early, really early. It was a good transition. I was ready to get off the road.
Okay.
And I love telling stories and I love music, and it was the perfect way to combine the two. Yeah.
You also teach. Mm-hmm. And you really started that more in earnest in 2017. And so you left radio.
Yeah.
So you could teach full time. And you're still teaching.
I am. It's the love of my life.
And it's a variety of ages and skill levels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I teach songwriting and singing, and it really is the thing that brings me the most joy.
Wow, that's so good. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for. Can we pray for her? Okay. I'm a PK, so I'm allowed to have a little humor sometimes. Okay. You, at one point this last summer, you gave yourself a really interesting challenge, and that was to write a song a day.
Yeah.
And you did.
I mean, I did. Yeah, they weren't all great.
No, they were great. Well, a lot of them you did, and then you posted little videos of yourself doing them on Facebook, and I scrolled through them a few months ago, and I was just sort of blown away.
It was hard.
I mean, the different variety and the genres and the styles and the themes and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there were days that I had songs built up that I knew I was going to, for the next week, I was good. And then, like, there were mornings I would wake up and literally have no idea what I was going to write that day. But because I not only challenged myself to write a song a day, but also to post a song a day, it kept me honest so that I knew I had to do it. And it was hard, but some music came out of it that I'm going to record in the new year, and I'm really excited about it.
So this song you're going to do right now is one of those write a song a day songs.
Yeah.
And it's called 7.951 billion people.
Nice, easy.
It is. It's really nice.
Easy
It's
title.
nice to say. So tell me the inspiration for that song.
Well, at this point, I had run out of like the things that I normally write about, which is heartbreak and sadness and exploring
that
my
old stuff.
feelings.
Yeah.
And I was like, what am I going to write today? And I was thinking about my teenage students and how they're growing up in this time. We all know about this social media and comparison and how it can be kind of. It's hard to be alive right now, but it's very hard to be a teenager.
Yeah.
And I see them and they have so much potential and so much spark and they don't want to share it because they're afraid of what's going to happen in school or online. And I just thought if you could only see what I see, I think you would know you don't have to change anything. You're perfect.
Yeah.
So that's what the song is.
All right. So here's Keri Noble and 7.951 billion people.
In case no one told you today, there's absolutely nobody else like you, and that's saying something. 7.951 billion people on this planet, but you still think that you're just ordinary. Damn it. What's it gonna take for you to understand? You don't have to try to be anything different. 7.951 billion people on this planet, but you still think that you're just ordinary. Well, I don't mean to burst your bubble, but smarter people have studied this. And if you don't believe me, you can just ask Google. It's called genetic variation and it's science, so you can't argue with it. In case no one told you today, there's absolutely nobody else like you, and that's saying something. 7.951 billion people on this planet, you're anything but ordinary. Just go ahead and own it.
If you've ever faced a challenge that nearly seems impossible, you might be driving a bus of hope. The wheels of my story spun into action as I gave birth to Rachel in December 2006. I'll never forget it. My family and birthing team encircled me. My husband Jim held my hand. My mother stood to my left, while my father sat in a chair battling stage 4 cancer, but singing the baseball anthem. You know it. Bum, 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 do-do-do-do-do-do. Charge! Thanks, Dad. Total cornball. But my brother Chris was there, and so was his girlfriend, and they were anxiously awaiting a special delivery. After 20 hours of labor, Rachel entered this loving orbit. She was gorgeous, grumpy, and girly. Her fingertips glistened with drops of blood. It looked like nail polish. Even in my fatigue, it looked like time stopped for a moment, as if we were all suspended in air, basking in the glow of Miss Rachel, plucked from heaven above. Now, the ultrasound gave strong clues of the gender, but I still had to ask, is it still a girl? Yes, was the reply. My father's cancer went into remission. While I was at work, Mom and Dad watched Rachel. The three of them had the best time. Over the first 4 years of her life, Rachel spent quality time with Grandma and Papa. And my father got a second chance at something he called the golden years. In December of 2010, Dad's cancer came back, and within a week's time, he's gone. We didn't explain death to Rachel at that precise moment, but a few months later, Rachel asked Mom a question from the back of her car. "Grandma, where's Papa?" "In heaven," Mom replied. Even in the silence, my mother knew she understood. Now, within a month of losing my dad, my doctor handed me my diagnosis, type 2 diabetes. Yay! This inconvenience is a blessing and a curse, but I refuse to complain. In May of that year, Jim, 4-year-old Rachel, and I entered Dick's Sporting Goods and bought Mom and daughter baseball gloves. We also signed her up for T-ball, and as a baseball fan, those of you who know me, I am, I was so looking forward to playing catch with our new gloves, watching a lifetime of team sports. I mean, why not? A month later, Rachel fell ill. She complained of tummy aches. Severe constipation was next, and then diarrhea. On Saturday, June 11th, I walked into her bedroom and said her name. She didn't respond. I said it several more times, and she barely looked at me. We immediately brought her to the hospital, only to find her kidneys were shutting down. Turns out she had E. coli. Now, usually, this condition is really no big deal. The very, very young doctors seemed sure this would be just a blip in the road. But that's not what happened. Instead, after 3 weeks on dialysis, the foodborne illness produced 2 strokes, one on both sides of her brain. One morning, she woke up drooling and staring off to space. Rachel's medical team ordered up an EEG, a test that measures brain activity. Those lines were as flat as notebook paper. Jim asked a very scary question. "Are you telling me that she could be a vegetable for the rest of her life?" "Yes," came the reply. We came very, very close to losing her. The staff called in a pastor for possible last rites. On July 3rd, after an intense meeting discussing options, the ER physician ordered a life-saving drug used for an E. coli outbreak in Germany. The patriotic holiday threatened our access to that very lifeline, so doctors ordered a staff person to break into the U of M, knowing it would set off the alarms. Once inside, they grabbed the drug, which by evening was hanging on an IV pole flowing into Rachel's body. We'll never know the name of that staff person, but God bless them. Within days, Rachel's eyes brightened. Her spirit flickered on. She came back to life. Within a week, she smiled again. She laughed when I brought up socks to my nose and said, P.U. She grinned and giggled as my mother hopped a plushy toy frog across her feet. It is said that humor requires a higher brain function. Our hopes clicked into drive when we witnessed hers return. Our 2-month stay at Children's Hospital came to an end. They discharged Rachel from the pediatric ICU. Her rehab rubbed into motion at Gillette Hospital in St. Paul. Her smiles were a welcome sight, but the future looked dim, uncertain. As Jim and Rachel got settled into her new hospital room, I found myself in a meeting with all women. doctors, nurses, a social worker, and a pastor. As we discussed Rachel's future, I was sore afraid. Yet something kicked inside like a labor pain. I demanded that everyone in that room pinky swear that they were on the bus of hope with me when it came to my daughter. The bus of hope was now officially a vehicle of optimism with its bright headlights leading it the way out of this darkness. Rachel was unable to speak, walk, roll over, feed herself, or use the potty. In fact, she wasn't even swallowing. She was tube-fed instead. Well, thank God for Sue and speech, who knew just what to do. With a big red lollipop, Sue leaned in and said, "Miss Rachel, doesn't this look so yummy?" Rachel peeked at the treat, gave it a big, gooey lick, and just like that, swallowed successfully. Thank goodness. Her first 2 words were yellow and mama. Soon, more words kept bubbling up. Now she knows the words to popular music and Broadway shows. Hashtag Taylor Swift. Hashtag Hamilton. Along with speech, Rachel did PT and OT twice a day, Monday through Friday, and once on Saturday, for 2 months straight. Let me be clear, we lived at the hospital for 4 months total. Gillette discharged Rachel on a Friday, and by Monday, she began kindergarten in a wheelchair and a para at her side. I was so bummed when I had to sacrifice my cute stick-shift Honda CR-V for an Odyssey, a vehicle fit for a wheelchair. As Rachel grew, our family traveled through the ups and downs of her recovery. We made many stops. Hip surgery twice in one summer. Rachel had 2 body casts that ran from her chest to her toes. She smiled daily and never complained. After the second cast came off, she had her first seizure. She's been on medications ever since. Her knees have screws in to keep her legs as straight as possible. 2 to 3 times a year, she receives a routine procedure of shots designed to keep her muscles free of spasticity and offer the best range of motion. Her spine slid out of alignment, so surgeons fused her back in the summer of 2021. In January of 2022, we were planning a trip to Boston, Jim's hometown. It was going to be our reward for getting through back surgery, and it was a gift, in my mind, to my husband. Oh, the joy we felt in planning that trip. It was going to be epic. What's more, I had a work convention in Boston, so I'd get reimbursed for some of our expenses. We were so excited. I'll never forget the hard things we did. So why not travel and have fun? Why not, right? But that trip never happened. In May of 2022, doctors handed Jim a diagnosis of glioblastoma, brain cancer. We thought we had 4 years. We only got 1. Jim asked to die at home, and I honored that request. Rachel witnessed everything except removing his body. We told her the truth that night he died. She took it hard, but understood. About 10 days later, in May of 2023, we buried Jim under a brilliant blue sky while singing James Taylor's Sweet Baby James. The house I returned to could no longer sustain us. It was an inaccessible tuck-under home, So her school bus came in on the lower level, but we lived on the upper level. This required 2 transfers into and out of the chairlift that moved her from one level to the next. Jim did all this heavy lifting when healthy. But once cancer took away his strength, riders on the Bus of Hope stepped up on a daily basis, helping me with the school routine. I also didn't want another winter with Rachel alone in that damn house. No thanks. That summer, with an army of Bus of Hope helpers, we were able to remodel the old home to be put on the market, purchase a new home, and sell the old home in September. Jesus, I can't believe we did all that. But get this, our new house offers one-level living, ceiling lifts, and widened doorways for Rachel's wheelchair. Oh, I'm profoundly grateful. I count my blessings multiple times a day. You know, I have learned many lessons as a so-called bus driver. If I were to write a driver's manual, I would share these tips. Number 1, ever since becoming a widow and a single mother, I simply don't get enough sleep. While Rachel sleeps at night, I live with the false illusion that I'm going to get something done. Instead, I fall asleep with the computer whirring and I'm asleep in my favorite chair. Guess what? Naps are the key that keep this old lady trucking. So, come on, y'all. 3 snaps for naps, right? Yes, I hear you. Yes. Yes, queen. Number 2, I've discovered that if something doesn't work, no matter how hard I try, I change course. Even if it's hard or scary or both. When Rachel and I had our first ever COVID cases in March, I felt trapped. I hated that. What should I do? Well, I traded in my van for an accessible one with a wheelchair ramp built in. Total game changer and joy maker. Was it an expensive move? Hell yes. But the good far outweighed the bad. This van wheeled us into fun things and ordinary things like buying groceries or going to the movies or taking in a concert downtown. Thanks to that van, Rachel and I are freer and live life to the fullest. Number 3, I regard hope and joy as purposeful choices. And my parents' DNA helped. My father was always a hoper. You just gotta believe, Melissa, he would say. I carry a shield of joy, too. My mother uses a phrase to this day that sets the tone to entertaining and everyday life. She says, keep it bright, breezy, and full of fun. She's right. Number 4, I've come to expect potholes and road rage when driving this bus of hope. I give myself permission to swear, even if silently in my head. I'm convinced that swearing is my 6th love language. Hell, I even own a t-shirt that says, what the French toast. Thank you for laughing. Number 5, as a widow, I can be tough old broad sometimes, yet I still need help. I got no problem for asking for it. It's not a sign of weakness. It's a way of my survival. And when I have more fuel than I need, I'll pay it forward. Number 6, every day I aim to celebrate the milestones, no matter how great or small. Rachel and I have both come such a long way, and I refuse to put a ceiling on our success. As I look into the future, the headlights beam onto my curiosity and plenty of fear. Do I know what's going to happen? Nope. What I do know is this bus don't do reverse. All I can do is keep my hands at 10 and 2 as the wheels of this bus go round and round. So, hop in, grab a seat, and welcome aboard. Thank you.
Melisa Castino Reid. Thank you so much, Melissa. Thank you so much. So, Melissa, thank you so much. So, your daughter Rachel is here tonight.
Yes.
And she turns 18 tomorrow.
That's
Rachel
right.
turns 18 tomorrow. So, besides being a Bus of Hope driver, you're also a community college professor.
I do teach English, yes.
You teach English at Normandale and Minneapolis College.
Indeed, I do.
And I have to give a posthumous shout out to your dad, Dominic Castino, who's a big part of your story.
Yes.
He was a dashing and talented actor and singer in the Twin Cities, very, very loved and admired, a big part of the Twin Cities theater scene. And then you mentioned your neighbors.
Yes.
And you were telling me on the phone, you were saying, if all of your neighbors and all sorts of different livelihoods and ideologies and lawn signs, if you know what I'm saying. And but you said any one of them, you could be inside the home and you could call out, and many of them would be at the door like within minutes.
Yeah, if I have a broken lawnmower, they'd come and fix it.
Right,
without
but even if there's an
asking.
emergency
Yeah,
too, right?
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
In fact, they're all in that Bus of Hope.
Yep.
You, speaking of lawnmower, you
Yeah.
described hope in a series of phrases.
Indeed.
Hope is a meal. Hope is a repaired lawnmower.
Indeed, yes.
Hope is a 4-letter word. you
Yes.
said. Hope has wheels. And I would say, hope is Rachel.
Indeed it is.
Hope is Melisa Castino Reid. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you so much for bringing us hope. Okay, so as I try to make sense of where we're headed right now, I am saddled with so many emotions, and I know I can't wallow in these emotions forever. So I'm searching for places to find strength and hope and optimism. And right now, I am finding strength in the 92% of black women who voted for Kamala Harris. Okay, the 92% are not a monolith by any means. The percentage represents millions of black women who each, have brought their own personal stories and their deepest dreams and their valid fears and concerns for their families and all of those other things, and showed up and organized and voted in huge numbers. I, on the other hand, am part of the 46% of white women who tried to do the same, but our numbers weren't there. Oh, I can hear it. Come on, Sue. Don't blame white women, cry the 53% of white women who did not vote for the Democrat. Come on, Sue. If we liked Kamala better, we would have voted for her, but she wasn't right. Right. Same thing you said about Hillary. Exact same thing. Same shit, different year. I am not a black woman. I can't join the black women only Facebook groups. And I will never, ever know what any of those 92% are feeling right now. But I can be blown away by the sheer tenacity that this high percentage number represents. And I can be inspired by their compassion and commitment to just get up and show up and keep pushing that boulder up the hill over and over and over again. A few years ago, Nikema Levy-Armstrong was the special guest on this show. Now, Nikema is a civil rights attorney who is a former law professor and the former head of the Minneapolis NAACP. Nikema continually walks the walk for racial justice, big time. During our onstage conversation, I asked her if she would share with us her definition of a white ally. And I led into the question this way. I said, Nikema, I'm progressive. I grew up in a progressive home, so I could be considered a white ally, right? And she said, usually white allies don't call themselves white allies. No offense, Sue. And I went, oh, oops. Oh, no offense taken, but lesson learned. Note to self. 92% of eligible black women voters said yes to progress and reaching milestones and finding real solutions with heart and empathy and kindness. and too many white women said no. But the yeses couldn't prevail without more allies from the no, and the allies weren't there. So as I celebrate and find strength in the passion of that 92%, I hope they know how much I admire their courage in the face of incredible pushback, and let's just call it blatant racism, right? And how much I'm hoping that they can each take a break, and then when they are ready to regroup, to do the work ahead, and there's a lot of work to do, I am so hoping that if they would like me to, and if it would be welcomed, I am ready to roll up my sleeves and stand beside them.
I know your heart is breaking. My heart is too. What's going on outside? What can I do? Oh God, can you hear me? 'Cause it feels like hell has opened up its gates, and I'm trying to believe we can be better, but it's hard to keep the faith. So make our love stronger, stronger than the hate. Me and my brother don't see eye to eye. So hard to love each other on different sides. Oh God, can you hear me? 'Cause it feels like hell has opened up its gates, and I'm trying to believe we can be better, but it's hard to keep the faith. So make our love stronger, stronger than the hate. 'Cause I don't wanna live like this, always with a clenched fist. What's it gonna take to heal all this sick?
So I had friends that didn't vote the same way I did, and that's fine. Ultimately, I wasn't friends with them because of their political standing. And what kind of friend would I be now if I judged their whole personality, morals, and ethics on one vote? And yes, I know that vote was important. But I would hate to be perceived completely by this one aspect of me. So I chose not to do that to them. Whether we agree or not, we are all trying to do what we think is best, and I can't fault them for that. And I have more problems to figure out and work on than, fighting with my friends. Problems like, how much weight comes with motherhood, literally and figuratively? On top of having to keep my child alive, well-fed, and hopefully shaped into a well-rounded, good human, I still want to pursue my passions. I still want my husband and I to invest in each other. I still want to be mentally sharp. I still want to be a person people can lean on. I still want to sleep. And though this is all a juggling act I need to learn how to balance as a mom, it feels impossible to do without feeling the weight of failing everyone and myself. There was this one night I came home. The dishes weren't done, the living room was a mess. I had missed an hour of rehearsal prior and didn't get to tuck my daughter into bed again, and I just lost it. I felt like I was weak for not figuring out how to do all of these things, and weak that I was crying about it. All I could say was, I don't know what to do. And my husband, he was caught by surprise, but he just came to me and he held me. There's this animation, you may have heard of it. It's called Inside Out. It's a movie about emotions in a young girl, Riley's, head, and we get to see how they interact with each other. Throughout the whole movie, Joy is pushing sadness away, saying Riley doesn't need sadness. It's not until Joy is about to be forgotten that she realizes one of Riley's core joyful memories were made because Riley was sad. Riley being sad brought all of these people who loved her to help her, to be with her. That night was my sadness moment. The moment I realized and truly understood that a hug goes a really long way. A couple of hours for myself planned goes a long way. Talking and asking goes a long way. As I become a mother, I've somehow forgotten that being vulnerable is a type of strength that one can have. I've always been strong because saying I don't know, but I would love to, is strength in holding myself up.
Me and my brother don't see eye to eye. So hard to love each other on different sides. Oh God, can you hear me? 'Cause it feels like hell has opened up its gates. I'm trying to believe we can be better, but it's hard to keep the faith. So make my love stronger, stronger than the hate.
Okay, now it's your turn. Hang on for a second. I want to know what's bringing you guys strength out here. I know, here she comes. She's coming out in the audience. Oh my God, we're doing something different. Who would like to share? Who would like to share? What is bringing you strength right now? Anything. It could be a word, a phrase, anything. Yes? Community. Community. Community is bringing you strength. Anybody else? Yes? Hang on for a second. What?
Not watching the news.
Not watching the news. And then you come here when we bring you more stuff. Yes, go ahead.
Compassionate young people like these two right here.
Compassionate young people like these two right there. There's Rachel. She's talking about Rachel and her PCA, right? Great, thank you. Anybody else? Anybody else? I know I'm looking at you, Dana, but you're not picked on. Do I picking on you? No, you're not. Do you want to share?
Yeah.
Okay.
This.
Thank you.
It's all of this. It's bringing vulnerability. It's bringing truth. It's bringing art and music all together. And I think there's so much power. Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Anybody else? I know I do have a chord, but it can only go so far. Go ahead.
Expressing your fear.
Expressing your fear is bringing you strength.
And friendship.
And friendship. Love that. Thank you. I mean, that's what we need to do, right? We need to find ways to express our strengths and be together. And it's okay to sometimes want to smash things. Thank you.
Oh God, can you hear me? 'Cause it feels like hell has opened up its gates, and I'm trying to believe we can be better, but it's hard to keep the faith. Oh God, can you hear me? 'Cause it feels like hell has opened up its gates, and I'm trying to believe I can be better, but it's hard to keep the faith. So make our love stronger and make our love louder, louder. Make our love stronger, stronger than the hate.
Keri Noble. Keri, thank you so much. Thank you, Dae. Thank you, Dae, and thank you for sharing. All of you that shared, thank you for sharing. Now, please welcome my guest for the conversation, Sarah Stoesz. Sarah, come on up. Sarah Stoesz, everybody. Sarah Stoesz. Thank you so much for coming and being a part of our night tonight.
Sue, it's so good to be here. You know you are doing something really important for the world. Don't you know that? I hope you know that. Can you please?
Well, appreciate
Let
that.
Sue
Thank
know
you.
What she is doing to bring hope
Well,
in this dark
we're all
time.
doing it. We're all doing it.
I know,
We're all
but you're doing
it.
it. Take some credit.
All right, we're all doing it.
Yeah.
All right, for those of you who don't know Sarah, and mainly for the podcast listeners, I'm going to do a quick little bio of you, okay? So prior to leading Planned Parenthood, you worked with the Alina Health System for 6 years. You were an advisor to Senator Paul Wellstone for 4 years. Yes?
No, yeah.
Right? Talk about buses. Anyway, it's kind of a bus theme tonight. Then you became the president and CEO of Planned Parenthood North Central States for 21 years.
Right.
From 2001 to 2022. And during your tenure with the organization, it grew from 2 states to 5, serving over 100,000 patients each year with 28 clinics. You are the winner of numerous awards over your career, with the most recent being the Most Admired CEO in 2022 by the Minneapolis-St. Paul Business Journal, and the very recent 2024 Dawn and Arvon Fraser Human Rights Award for your lifetime commitment to reproductive health and human rights. So, brava.
Thank you.
You know, I am going to move.
you.
I'm going to move just a titch, just so it feels like I'm not having to look through
see
your
each other.
So now I want to get into the meat of things. Okay, as I said earlier, Sarah is also a PK. Your father was a Presbyterian minister.
Yes, he was.
And you grew up in the civil rights and anti-war movement.
Yes, I did.
As did I. Mm-hmm. You told me this story about an anti-Vietnam War protest in Oxford, Ohio.
Right.
Which is a college town.
Right.
And the sheriff deputized regular citizens to help police the student protests. And you were saying how violent the men were.
Right.
And they were bashing the heads in of students, like with baseball bats or whatever. And so your anti-war father is very angry about this treatment. And the students would hang their bloody sheets out their dorm windows. And your father one day, you're 10 years old at the time.
Roughly, yeah.
Yeah. And he drives you by the dorm room so that you see that. And it's like, we are against this. This is wrong. Mm-hmm. And you talk about that visual at 10 years old. Now fill in the rest. I mean, I kind of gave the basics of it, but fill in the rest of that story.
Well, first of all, my father, yes, he was a Presbyterian minister, but he was born in southwestern Minnesota. He was born into a German Mennonite family, so a pacifist family.
Yeah, right.
And so that was a very important way that he framed up his life. And, of course, during the war, when the country was so polarized, yes, we are very polarized now, but do not forget how very, very polarized. And so for those of you who lived through that, it was a tough, tough time. So protests were breaking out all over the place. There was the draft. There was this terribly unjust war, terribly unjust. Right. And the students were justifiably very, very angry. And, of course, they were bringing a lot of moral authority to the debate.
Well, they were being drafted.
Some of the students weren't being drafted.
Well, that's true. Because
so I just want to point this out.
True.
It's a very important point about the draft, because some people of privilege got to escape the draft.
Right.
And many people who did not have privilege did not get to escape the draft. So there was a lot of inequality and inequity in the way that the draft was.
And, you know, I didn't ask you about this before, but my father signed conscientious objector forms for kids at that time.
Yeah.
And I don't know if your dad did too, but
when you think about that time and how very difficult that was, and there was a lot of division in the country, and we were somehow able to emerge from it as a country. And move on. And
So you say there's hope now?
Well, I hope so.
No, seriously. Like, you're right. Let's remember that and say, okay, there is hope.
I think it's
Yes.
really important to remember that our country has had many, many, many difficult times.
Okay.
And,
right.
you know, I was listening to a really great interview with Sarah McBride, who is this amazing, transgender woman from Delaware who's now been elected to Congress. And she was the one, of course, they had to pass this ridiculous bathroom bill. But Sarah McBride would not take the bait and get into the muck of the bathroom bill.
Right.
And she just keeps focused on solving problems. But one thing that she said is how difficult this time is, yes. But imagine how difficult it was if you were an enslaved person in the 1800s. And at that point, could people even have imagined, people who were enslaved, could you even have imagined a different world, the world that we even have today? And so I thought that was quite profound and quite important.
Absolutely. You know, what Sarah did was, during that, Sarah McBride, she took the teeth out of that fight instantly by like, okay, I'll just use the unisex bathroom. That's okay. I don't want to be about bathrooms. And all of a sudden, it's like, we're going to ban the thing. Oh, I guess we have no fight anymore. So God bless her. I thought it was a brilliant move. Yeah,
you know, it was really great. Too, in Montana, remember there was that big fight, you know, last year in Montana because of a transgender. I can't remember if she was a senator or a rep, but they didn't want her to speak. Remember?
Right. Yes.
But this year they have declined to pass one of those heinous bathroom bills. So progress.
Right?
Progress. In Montana.
Yeah.
They didn't do it.
So, okay, growing up, you were quite the activist and the rebel. So you were telling me how you sewed a patch of an American flag upside down on your blue windbreaker when you were in 8th grade.
Yeah. I know. I was kind of hoping you wouldn't say that.
No, you have to. You have to. No, but I also think, I'm thinking about it. You're an 8th grade kid. Obviously, your dad's a pacifist. He's driving you by the dorm rooms. We don't approve of kids getting their heads bashed in just for protesting. And it's informed your advocacy, don't you think?
Completely informed. Well, yeah.
So we have to tell this story.
Well, okay.
I mean, if you were a Supreme Court justice and it's about upside down flags,
that's
it's a whole
why
different
I'm worried
thing.
about the story. I know.
I know.
I just want to make it really clear.
Well,
it's not that kind of upside down.
I know,
flag.
but you're in 8th grade at this point.
I'm in 8th grade.
The Supreme Court justice is a lot older than that.
And it was a different time.
It's not apples to apples.
No.
Right. Okay, so there was another story you told me about. You went to a Catholic high school.
It was a junior high.
Junior high, okay.
Yeah.
And you decided that you were just going to share with everybody that there is no scientific proof that God exists.
Right.
And you just told everybody.
Everybody.
And
everybody.
And
then all the nuns, Father Tom,
and the kids,
all the students,
all the parents wondered why the hell is this kid in our school saying this?
They did.
Yeah.
And they went to see the principal.
And they wanted you expelled.
And they wanted me expelled.
And the principal, Sister Margaret, stood up for you.
Sister Margaret, she did. She stood up for me. And but what she said, so I did have to go to the office to talk about it, but it wasn't to explain to me why I didn't have the right to say that maybe God didn't exist. But just to say, maybe you could find a way to talk about it that wasn't so offensive.
But I love
and that was a good lesson.
No, that's a very good lesson. But I love it when you said that she said, I so appreciate your spirit and that you could be president of the United States someday.
I know she did. She told me that.
Right, she told you that. Right.
So I know. So feature
But then
that.
she said you might want to rethink your tactics. But she stood up for you. I thought that was terrific.
I know, and again, a divisive, difficult time and a difficult subject. Does God exist or not exist? That's a pretty difficult subject in a parochial school, especially when I'm not a Catholic.
No, and then what does a school kid know, really? But, maybe you knew it in your heart. Maybe somebody spoke to you or whatever.
Or didn't.
And plus, don't forget, at the same time, she's a preacher's kid.
Right.
So there's that. And
it's kind of complicated.
Exactly, right. Okay, so before you started with Planned Parenthood, you were a labor organizer.
Well, yes, that's right.
Yeah.
And actually,
The
I was,
advocacy just is endless, people. It's just endless with this woman.
yeah. So
okay, do tell.
I was a waitress and I was a bartender, and
Weren't we all?
Yeah, I hope so. It was a great job. Maybe one of the, yes.
Yes, likewise.
It's really
sure.
fun. So I was working at the Curtis Hotel at one point. Remember that place? It was a beautiful
Yes,
hotel
yes,
downtown. It was really
yes,
gorgeous.
yes.
And it was the first time I had a union job. I had only had non-union jobs before, and so I get this union job. I'm like, wow, I've got health care, I've got vacation, I've got a little pension. It was so cool. I was very, very excited.
I bet.
That turned out that the union, the local union, even though mainly the people in the union, the workers, were women, well, the union was run by men.
Sure, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
And the thing that was kind of bad about that is that at the time, there weren't that many women bartenders around. And so when they hired as a bartender, you were supposed to put on these like little skimpy little outfits and high heels and, you know, walk around like this. And that was part of the thing. Well, we didn't like that. And so we wanted to file grievances about that, and we wanted to grieve our uniforms, and we couldn't get anywhere with the union. And so what we decided to do, a bunch of us women, was to form an organization that was called Forward, and it was called For Our Rights, Wages, and Real Democracy.
Yes!
And
yes!
And so we had a feminist-based organization, Forward, and we ran an election, and we actually won, and we ran all those guys out of office, and we took over the union. I know.
And then did you like burn your high heels?
Yeah.
Like in a thing. We're burning the high heels.
Yeah, no more
We're
high
not gonna
heels.
wear high heels anymore.
No more.
We're gonna
Flat
smash
shoes.
things. Yeah, flat
Exactly.
shoes. We want flat shoes. Oh, I just love that. I love that.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Okay, so you get recruited to take the position at Planned Parenthood in 2001.
Right.
And you were reminding me that the basics of Planned Parenthood is family planning and sexual health. And you talk about going to a Planned Parenthood yourself in the 70s when you were in high school.
Right.
And that even for you, it changed your life.
Planned Parenthood saved my life.
Saved your life.
I would not be sitting here today if I wasn't able to walk into one of those clinics when I was a teenager and didn't know anything about my body and how to take care of it. And if they had not opened their arms to me and brought me in and taught me what I needed to know.
Yeah.
And that is why just a simple thing like understanding how your body works, it's a basic human right.
Yeah.
And I got that from Planned Parenthood, and I was deeply, deeply loyal to Planned Parenthood for my entire life because Planned Parenthood gave me my life. That's it.
You were telling me that you were sexually active in high school, and a friend said you should go to Planned Parenthood. But because there was a stigma around, you guys had a code.
Yeah, we called it Patty Parker's house. And so we would say, we're going to Patty Parker's house.
Patty Parker's house.
Want to come?
And guess what? Decades later, she becomes the president and CEO of Patty Parker's
Parker's house. Yeah, I know.
What? How cool is that? Did you call it Patty Parker's house ever when you were there?
Kind of, just for fun.
Oh,
but
good, just for fun. Okay, good. Because I would really hope you did.
But you know, Sue, when Planned Parenthood is attacked right now, as they are, and this effort to kick people out of Medicaid that go to Planned Parenthood and all this stuff, there's an attempt to completely dismantle Planned Parenthood. The reason that is so important is not necessarily just because of the attack on that institution, but it is an attack on the ability of millions and millions and millions of women and girls today who aren't old enough to go to Planned Parenthood, who will never be able to go to Planned Parenthood, who won't get their life given to them the way I had my life given to me.
Right.
That's what it means. It is an attack on women and girls.
Yes. And
that's why it's so upsetting.
When you took over at Planned Parenthood, I read an article where you talked about feeling isolated from your allies in the labor movement.
Yeah, for sure.
Because abortion wasn't a word that was said. So all of a sudden it's like they didn't want you at the table, or they didn't want to invite you over because, you're like with the abortion people.
Right.
Yeah, and then you said labor rights are human rights, but those rights only take a woman so far if she's prohibited from deciding if or when she'll have children. Can she be in the workforce if she's a young mom or not? So they are connected. So why the isolation?
Well, I mean, at the time, abortion was not a word that was really said in polite company. It just wasn't. And so even in progressive circles, and I'm here with my dear friend, Dr. Carol Ball, who I really want to recognize, who's a longtime abortion provider in the upper Midwest, and who flew to South Dakota for many, many years to take care of women there that no one else would take care of. I mean, you all remember this. Abortion was not discussed inside the Democratic Party. It's very progressive today. Everybody wants to talk about abortion, right? Because we know it's very, very popular. But at the time, no one would say the word. But it was very popular among women, but yet it wasn't acknowledged.
Right. I want to talk about, speaking of South Dakota, you were telling me about the first South Dakota abortion ban in 2006.
Yes.
And obviously this is while abortion rights were still in place, of course, but all the states were trying to do all these different bans.
Nobody was doing bans at that time.
Oh, nobody was doing bans at that time?
Nobody was doing bans. The only state that had done a ban was South Dakota.
Oh, okay.
It's the only one.
Oh, okay.
And abortion had never been on the ballot, ever. And up until then. It was just very different time. Now we've got abortion ballot initiatives all over the place, and we're winning them like crazy. But back then, that was not happening.
Right.
Because remember, no one talked about abortion. Back then, no one wanted to. Politicians did not want to say that word. They didn't want to stand next to us on stage. You know, they didn't want anything to do with it. They just wanted it to go away. Just, you please go take care of this over there. Thank you, but don't talk about it.
About that South Dakota ban, the first one, you were talking about how initially the campaign was going to be just an in-your-face, bands off our bodies with signs with hangers all over them, and that was what you were going to do. And you decide that's not the way to go.
No, because I wanted to win, and I didn't want to alienate people. I wanted to win because it had never been done anywhere in the country ever.
Wow.
Ever.
Okay.
Anytime any bad abortion legislation was passed anywhere in the country, what we always did was litigate. But I was an organizer. I was a political organizer. And so I wanted to use this as a tool to organize, to make change. So I wanted to take it to the ballot in South Dakota. So that's what we did. But we did not get any support nationally from the national leaders of the movement. In fact, they worked very hard to dissuade us from not doing it. They did a lot of things. It was not a popular move.
So you decided, or ultimately the decision was made, to focus on family health. And ultimately you were successful.
Yeah. We won that campaign by 12 points. It was just incredible. It was a total blowout. And it was because we framed it as the South Dakota Campaign for Healthy Families. Yeah. And we didn't ask people to give up their pro-life label. If that's what they wanted, they could be pro. We only asked for some mutual empathy. So we gave empathy. We asked for empathy back. And we had a neighbor-to-neighbor conversation about it in 2005. And that's how we won.
And then you won another ban that came up in South Dakota later.
2 years later, another one, and then two in North Dakota, the subsequent years. So we had, every 2 years we had one of those things. And again, that just was not happening back then.
So you're at Planned Parenthood for 21 years. Yeah. And in 2022, you decide it's time to step aside and let some new energy and some new leadership take the reins. And the Dobbs decision had just come down that summer, months before that. And I want to talk about some of the initiatives that you put into place while you were at Planned Parenthood. You created a public health corporation to produce generic birth control drugs.
Right. It still exists.
It still exists.
Yeah. It's called AFACSIS. Stands for Affordable Access, and we manufacture birth control pills.
Yeah.
I know.
Right.
It's really cool. Mainly for the public sector.
She did that. Yeah. You talked about being proud of helping to remove the stigma around abortion and convincing the American College of OBGYNs and the American Medical Association to come out in favor of abortion access, because that hadn't been done before.
Yeah, well, that was not just me. That was like a major group effort all around
you
the
were
country.
Part of that.
But yes,
right.
But it was a very big group effort because we knew that we had to take down stigma. And in fact, now you see the results of it. Stigma is very, very much taken down very much. You know, back in the early days, doctors who performed abortions that did not appear in the media. If they did, it was a very big security deal, or they appeared, you know, in shadow. That has completely changed now. Now there are doctors all over the place that feel safe speaking out. The world has changed very radically. You know, in many ways, this is the worst of times. For sure, this election is terrible. Not going to sugarcoat that. It is terrible, but it is also in some ways the best of times because we are able to speak openly. There is a lot of public support expressed. We won almost every ballot initiative.
7 out of 10.
Time.
7 out of 10.
Well, I'm going to say 8 out of 10.
8.
I'm saying 8 because
more voters in Florida.
Florida,
voted yes.
57%, but they changed the rules and they made it 60%. So that's why I lost.
You know, one thing that you mentioned that I thought was really, really interesting is it was in an interview that you did. Somebody asked you about your regrets. This is after you had left. You talked about medical systems, the general medical systems, don't allow abortion services to be folded into general health care. That they've allowed abortion clinics to be the standalone providers. And you were talking about how Planned Parenthood staff shouldn't have to be the ones driving through picket lines every day.
Right.
And the medical community should not have allowed that to happen. They'll refer people, go to Planned Parenthood for that, or why don't you? But it's like, oh no, and so that sort of wall there has maintained. And I bet that would be frustrating.
It's very frustrating. I think it's changing. I think it's coming down a little bit, but I still think that it would be very unlikely that if you picked up the phone and you said, I'm pregnant and I need an abortion, can you help me? They would say no. Please go to Planned Parenthood. If you were a patient there already, maybe if you had a friendly doc, you might get some help. But somebody out there.
That's what they do. We don't do that. That's what they do.
Right.
And I agree with you. That's unfortunate that that's
it's
still
wrong.
that way. Yeah.
It's wrong. There's no other. There's no other medical that is treated that way. Nothing.
So you reacted. I know we've talked a little bit about this, but your reaction to this election. One of the things you said to me is you said you felt betrayed. And what does it mean to be a woman right now?
I don't know.
What do you think?
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's very, very, very hard. I think we're all still really processing what that means. What does it mean to be a woman in this country now that this man has been elected and so many others have been elected? And I mean, I think, you know, when you were asking people for their, you know, words of hope, there is still so much of it.
Yeah.
But it's a very painful time for us to live through right now. And I am still grappling with a lot of it. I am. But I do feel hopeful in the sense that, you know, all the things that we've just been talking about, that change continues to happen, that there have been very, very dark times in the country before. And I think when we're in the midst of a dark time, it's hard to imagine the light.
Right.
It's just harder. But there is light.
Yeah.
And we will get through this.
You talk about needing to recalibrate and approach Trump world with nuance.
Right.
And I thought this was really interesting. And you said, and set aside the need to be right. And that really went like, that hit me. And find ways to get to allyship and to create dialogue instead of inviting confrontation. All those things sound good, Sarah. How do we do that?
Well, I mean, it's just like what I was talking about in South Dakota, you know, all those years ago when the people wanted to support abortion rights. But if we had said to them, you know, South Dakotans for choice and coat hangers and, you know, all that stuff, they would not.
Yeah.
They would not have. Yeah. So we just have to think about what we want. Do we really just want to be right, or do we want to change the world?
Yeah.
And you know what I mean by that is when I say do we want to be right, it's just tactically.
Yeah.
Tactically, what are we doing? Do we just insist that we have to have it our way or the highway?
Right.
Or can we maybe think about what would actually change things?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and that's hard because we really like the other one.
Well, the other one is easy and it feels good, and you know, honestly, we you know, it's
I
easy.
know, and I'm kind of I don't mean to tease, but I just love this thing of finding ways to get to allyship and creating dialogue instead of confrontation. Love that. 2 last things I want to tell. First off, speaking of the election, I just love this story. Your 91-year-old mother would sit out on her lawn next to her Harris Wall sign every day and talk to people walking by.
Yeah, that's what
Engage
she
people
does.
walking by. And I was like, I want to come over and sit with her in her lawn.
Yeah, you should.
And you were saying it was kind of a busy street in St. Paul, and then people would engage and people would talk to her, and they're like, well, are you going to vote? And then she would sit there, and I just love that story. I thought, we should have all gone out in our lawns.
Yeah.
How come we didn't do that? We should have gone on our lawns. Okay, the last story. You shared a story about being at an annual physical exam.
Oh, yeah.
And this is fairly recently. Mm-hmm. And you're sitting in the cold room with the awful, ugly, the gown. And the doctor has left the room momentarily, and the young female medical assistant is still there. And she grabs you and she starts sobbing.
Right.
Thanking you for saving her life.
Right. Right.
I don't even know I can get through this. She told you she was able to get an abortion 4 years earlier.
Right.
And that because of that, she was planning to go to medical school so she could help others.
Right.
Wow.
Right. I know.
Wow.
What a privilege. Yeah.
I mean, I know you're like, well, but she saw you, she saw you as that representation of Planned Parenthood. And she just wanted to grab you. And I just love that story.
And she's going to go on now, and she is going to also give hope and change lives in that way. It is, it was.
Well, so thank you,
a
Sarah.
moment.
Thank you, Sarah, for helping countless women have a choice. Have a choice.
Yeah, that's
Thank you, Sarah.
You are
Thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you, Sue.
Sarah
Thanks,
Stoesz, everybody.
Thanks.
Sarah Stoesz. Thank you
everybody.
so much, Sarah.
Thanks.
And that's our show for tonight, everybody. I want to thank Sarah Stoesz again, please. Sarah, please. And Keri Noble. And Melisa Castino Reid. And Dae Yang. Come on up, guys. And I want to thank our live captioner, Erica Cook. And John Robinson, our engineer, and our master volunteer tonight, Suzanne Egley. And Bonnie Allen, thank you for taking our pictures. And thank you to the wonderful staff here at Crooner Supper Club. I also want to thank our researcher, Marissa Helms. And a big thank you to our sponsors tonight, Nancy Scott and David O'Connor. And if you would like to support what we do here on the Island of Discarded Women, you can go to our website, www.islandofdiscardedwomen.com, and you'll find information about our upcoming shows, and you can listen to all of our episodes. So thank you, everybody. We'll be back very soon with another live Island of Discarded Women. Thank you. I'm Sue Scott. Good night. Good night.